Okay, this is the video that we recorded earlier, and I tried to do the Zoom one and it wouldn't open. So I'm just going to put this up for those of you that weren't able to attend, and you can look at the work that we did, and then you can email me with questions that you may have. What we talked about, as you can see on here, I'm going to do a couple of them and go back, but we said that we talked about on this first problem that we need to get a least common denominator. I'm not going to erase all this, just some of it. So if we get a least common denominator, what we're looking at is 7x and 4x. 7 and 4, the smallest thing it goes into is 28. So we said our least common denominator was 28x. So I used 28x at the bottom of each fraction. And then we look at what's missing. So when I look at what's missing, I can see that here I need 4 times 7 to give me 28, which means I multiplied 7 on top. So 7 times 5 gives me 35. Over here I need to say 7 times 4. And so I have to do the same thing on top. So I get 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. That's how we came up with negative 8 over 28x minus 35 over 28x. Then when we combine it over one fraction, we have negative 8 minus 35 gives us negative 43 over 28x. Over here, again, I'm going to erase a little bit of this stuff that's up here for those people that weren't with us. We said that we were looking for our least common denominator. And so for my least common denominator, I look at the bottom. I already have an x squared, a 2, and a 3. So if we think about all of that, 2 times 3 is 6. So I have to have a 6. And we can't just have one x because x squared doesn't go into it. So I have to have x squared as my least common denominator. So if I write that on the bottom of each fraction, 6x squared and 6x squared, we look at what's missing. So what's missing here is my 3. So 3 times 4 on top gives me 12. What's missing over here is multiplying top and bottom by 2, which gives me 2, and then also the x, because this only has 1. So I have to multiply times 2x with top and bottom. So that's where I get the 2x. If we add, we get 12 plus 2x over 6x squared. 2 goes into all of these. So if I divide everything by 2, that's where we get our answer of 6 plus 2x over 3x squared. This one's probably pretty easy to see. If we think about 5 and 10, least common denominator is 10. So if we look at this first fraction, we have to multiply top and bottom by 2 to get 2x on the top. The second fraction doesn't change because we already had a 10 on the bottom. We can add our 2x and our single x, and we get 3x plus 3 over 10. We also went over number 5. For those of you that were not with us, what we did first is we factored x squared minus 4 into x plus 2, x minus 2. And then we noticed that over here on this side, all we had was an x minus 2. So I'm missing x plus 2. So I have to have that factor on top and bottom. If we use the distributive property here to do 3 times x and 3 times 2, that's where I got 3x plus 6. The key here is this is subtraction. So when I rewrite it, I have 4x plus 1 minus 3x minus 6 on top, which simplifies to, this is our answer. I left 4 and 6 for you guys to do. We said that on number 6, least common denominator was 30 because 6 times 5 goes into it. And so here we're missing a 6 top and bottom. That's what we're multiplying by. Over here we're missing a 5 top and bottom. So you can finish. On number 4, these factors don't have anything in common. So we said that we had to include both of those in our least common denominator. So you can see I rewrote it down here as 9x times x plus 2 on bottom and top, or on both of the bottoms here. So if I want to know what's missing, this side is missing that factor of 9. So I'm multiplying 9 top and bottom. This one is missing the factor of x plus 2. So if we multiply that out, then we can combine our like terms. Okay, number 7 was a little bit more of a mess here. I think I'm just going to redo this one so that those of you that were working it with us and those of you that were not, you can see. And I'm also going to do a note video that will do a few more examples like this. But let's look at, I'm going to do this on number 7 all the way through, just so that we're clear. First thing we want to do, if anything can be factors, we want to factor it. So this is going to factor into x minus 6, x plus 5. Then we want to look at my denominators. Our least common denominator has to include everything that's at least in the biggest. Okay, well this has the most in it right there. So my least common denominator has to be x minus 6, x plus 5. If I look at the other one, it only has x minus 6. Okay, well that's part of it. And so if we had the x minus 5 or x plus 5 part also, we would have that denominator. So that's what's missing for here. So you're always going to be thinking about that the part that's missing, or the factors that are missing, is what you're going to be multiplying by. So let's write all of this. We have x minus 6 times x plus 5. We're not changing our first fraction because it already has that denominator. But the second fraction, we have to multiply everything on the top here. So what I said was we have to use distributive property like we did a long time ago, where we said 3x times x, 3x times 5, 5 times x, 5 times 5. So if we multiply all this together, we actually get, right up here above it, we actually get 3x squared plus 15x plus 5x plus 25. And so if I put the 15 and 5 together, we have 3x squared plus 20x plus 25. You could do that with the box method, or you can just do it with distributive property. Okay, but that's where that came from, is we multiplied 3x plus 5 times x plus 5, and we came out with 3x squared plus 20x plus 25. Okay, so let's simplify. If we put everything over the same denominator, because if we're adding and subtracting, we keep our denominator. This is all being subtracted. So remember that's got that understood -1 there. So this makes, if we want to think about adding the opposite, it makes that one negative, that one negative, and that one negative. If you want to multiply the -1 through, you can. But 3x squared minus 3x squared cancels out. So we're left with negative 20x minus 25 on the top. And there's our answer. Okay, so I will post this, and those of you that were not able to do the Zoom meeting, you can check it. If you are looking in the Zoom meeting or coming in there, you need to use what your actual name is, because we're trying to be careful about who we let in so that it doesn't disrupt our tutorial session. So be sure that you're using your name. You can use your little controls there to change your name to what your actual name is on the roll. Okay, thank you.